Here we'll cover a few aspects of creating APA references. We'll talk about references, parenthetical citations, and in-text citations. Again, this is an overview, not to be a substitute for the APA manual. This is just some editorialization of the rules so that I can give you maybe a little bit more context or different context or clarify things. But again, please do refer to the APA manual or other credible style guide as needed. So the spirit of APA references is that we need to provide credit for ideas that are not our own, right? When we use ideas that are not our own and don't give credit for them, whether it's intentional or not, it's still plagiarism, okay? We also want to demonstrate the quality of the information. So if I'm going to make a statement, I need to refer to something that says that this is where I got my information from. It's a credible source, so what I'm saying has high quality, right? And then plainly, and going along with the first point, we want to avoid plagiarism. Again, anytime that we don't give credit for any idea that's not ours is plagiarism. Whether we do it unintentionally, by accident, which is an error that happens sometimes, where we omit a citation. We don't mean to do anything, but regardless, it's still plagiarism. Or if we do it intentionally, so if we engage in research fraud, that means that we fabricate things or we don't give credit to the to original authors, then that's also plagiarism. So we want to avoid plagiarism at all costs. The basic anatomy of any reference includes several things. Sometimes they're available, sometimes they're not, depending on what your reference is. But in general, you'll have an author, so somebody or a group has authored the reference that you are referring to. There'll be a year, and sometimes it's the year of publication, sometimes it's the year that you accessed something, like in terms of a newspaper or something like that, or the year that something was originally published, and sometimes you can do year, month, and date, especially for websites if that's available to you. But again, sometimes things are published and you don't know the exact date or month that it was published. So you use the most precise information that you can in cases where you're not talking about books or journals. So if it's any other kind of reference, then you want to be as precise as you can about not when you accessed it. That's retrieval date isn't used as much as it used to be, but when it was originally published. Then you'll have a title of whatever the reference is that you're looking for, and the title is present no matter what kind of reference it is. A publisher, which is usually going to be something about a journal or a publisher of a book or something like that, or if it's published online through a database, sometimes we'll include that information. But again, that does vary based on the reference type. These are just the basic ideas that you'll want to keep in mind when you're talking about references. And then the location. So if you're talking about a chapter in a book or a journal, you'll want to know the volume and the issue. Sometimes pagination comes into play. For example, in journal articles, you do include the pages of the journal where the article appears, but not for books. I think in some cases, like in MLA, they used page numbers for things more, especially for in-text citations, than we do in APA. But in APA, we don't usually include page numbers in the references section except for journal articles. You will use page numbers in in-text citation for books, but only under certain circumstances that I recommend avoiding anyways. But we always want to include a URL or a DOI for a reference when it's available. And DOIs are increasingly popular. Even for old documents that were, written before the internet, there were still DOIs that were assigned to those after DOIs became popular. So more and more we're seeing DOIs prevalent. We try to avoid using URLs when we're talking about where an article came from. So if you found something from Google Scholar, don't use the Google Scholar link, right? Which will be like Google or scholar.google.com/something, and it'll be a bunch of gobbledygook. We don't want that. We want URLs for permanent links to articles and DOIs. That's pretty much what we want to rely on there. So these are some basic examples some references that you might see. The first one is a book. It's the Methods of Behavioral Research by Cosby and Bates. It's formatted appropriately. It's got an edition, and it's got the publisher. The second example is of a website that's group authored, Laird Statistics, and this particular article that I'm referring to is one about hierarchical multiple regression. It only had a year when it was published. It did not have a date or a month, so the most precise I could get was the year. And I have a website which is the home website for the information that I was able to find. Alternatively, I could have included the direct link to that website. The problem is that the website that or the article that I got is behind a login, and you can't get to that using the link that would have been provided, so it would have been a broken link for you. So I just used the home page for the website, which is what you would do in a case like that where the user may not have access to it, or there's some kind of paywall or login wall or something. The third example is of a journal article with a DOI, and DOIs are formatted in URL format. So URLs are it's abbreviation for a Uniform Resource Locator. It's a web address basically. So you use the URL version of a DOI, and what you'll see here is that the DOI for the article actually starts at the 10.11621 address, and it goes all the way through the end. But what we do is we take that and we add it to the end of the standard https://doi, I think I said backslash, that's funny, // doi.org/ and then you put your URL in there. So you can always use this format even if you don't have like this format available to you in the journal article. You can usually find the DOI and then put it in this format, and you'll be good to go. The last example is the ethical code for the American Psychological Association, and this is published online, and as such, you have the website where the code lives. Plus, what's kind of cool is that the APA manual gives you a copy and paste version of how to cite the code of ethics. Because it's a little bit complex. It was originally published in 2017. Well, that's not true at all. This version, in its current form, is 2017. The original code, in any form, well, that's not true either. The original code, as it was republished, was 2002. It was amended in 2020 and in 2017. But even so, it includes the 2017 as the primary year when you copy and paste it from the APA manual. I assume that when they do a revision of the APA manual, it'll be revised somehow. So we don't get too bent out of shape over that. This is a good reference, even if there seems to be some kind of disparity between the most recent date. So there we go. The 2017 amendment is the one that gets the primary year. Don't ask me why. This is a slide with some of the references that we looked at prior, plus we have another one that's another book. So just kind of seeing some other examples might be helpful to you. Now, when we have a reference and we are using it in our writing in order to support our thoughts, our ideas, we need to give credit to the authors somehow so that the reader understands that what we're talking about are not our own ideas. There are two ways to do this. The first way is to do it what's called parenthetically. And when you hear the word parenthetical, you can think of parentheses, those punctuation marks. Oh, there we go. Those punctuation marks that look like little curly things that hug your text. Isn't that nice? But what happens here is that you make a statement, something like, the propensity for students not to take APA formatting seriously really irks some people. And then you would say, oh, that was an idea that came from Haggerty 2023, for example, which is actually true, but it's not an academic resource. It's just an example. Calm down. Okay. So you can have a parenthetical citation, which means that you say something and then you give credit in parentheses to the individual. you can do that with more than one. So if you have something like, some have even suggested corporal punishment for egregious formatting errors. If more than one person contributed to that idea, so you found a couple of references that say the same kind of thing, then you would say some, and right after you say some of the people, you like some authors, like here at the parenthetical citation, Smith in 2020, semicolon, Jones 2015. Those are the two authors that contribute to this thought. So when we have a parenthetical citation, it is just a matter of giving credit to the authors in the sentence, but you don't really refer to the authors in your writing. However, if you were to refer to the author in the writing, you wouldn't need to include their name in the citation. It would be evident based on that. Okay. For example, if I said something like, according to Hagerty, I would just need to include the year that it was said, because the author or the reader could say, oh, the author was Hagerty and it was a 2023 article or whatever, book, whatever it was. I'm not writing a book. But according to Hagerty, 2023, the propensity for students not to take APA formatting seriously really irks some people. So in that event, this is a perfectly reasonable narrative citation. It's narrative because the referent, me in this case, would be included in the narrative of the sentence, not just parenthetical to it. So if you took out this 2023, it would say, according to Hagerty, the propensity ... So the narrative citation is when you actually use the author's name. And again, you notice that it's just the last name. It's not according to Will Hagerty or whatever it is. It's just the last name. Same thing with that second example. Smith 2020 and Jones 2015 had even suggested corporal punishment for egregious formatting errors. So that the use of the author's name is narrative. It's inside of the sentence, so you don't put it in parentheses. You can just use it as if you're talking about these authors, but you would include the dates in there because let's say that Jones wrote a couple articles that you're referring to. This is specific to the 2015 article. So you always include the year of the article. This is taken right from the APA manual. You can see that there are some in-text citation styles. So if we have an author, a single author, and we use a parenthetical citation, for example, this author's last name is Luna, written in 2020, that would be the parenthetical citation for an idea that came from that reference. If you have two authors, it would be the first author, an ampersand, and the second author, and then the year. So if you have two authors that co-authored a paper, it would be first author, ampersand, second author, year. Three or more authors, it would be the first author plus the phrase et al., and then a comma, and then 2020. What's interesting here is that it's the author, the word et, no period. Et is Latin for and. It's not an abbreviation. Al is an abbreviation for the word alai, which means the rest in Latin. And because that's an abbreviation, it does get a period. And then there's a comma, and then the year. If you have a group author with an abbreviation, the group author goes in the citation, and then you can abbreviate that and use this going forward. Notice that you put it in brackets and not additional parentheses. And then you have the year. And then every other citation, you can use that abbreviation that you declared in the first citation. If you have a group author without an abbreviation, it just becomes the group author. You're good to go. Now, those are parenthetical versions. If you look at the narrative citations, really all you notice is that you take the year that used to be inside of the citation and put it outside, or excuse me, inside the parentheses and put it outside of the parentheses. And then you just go forward the same. One difference, though, is that when you have two authors, here you see the first author and second author. In a narrative citation, you use the word and because it's part of a sentence. You don't use an ampersand in a sentence when you mean and. You use the word and. So you would use the conjunction and, Salus and Dignostino. So those would be the two authors that you see there. And then you have the year in parentheses. Okay. And then the same kind of formatting is for the rest of them. Okay. Let's see. Next. So these are just some quiz form type things that you can do to fix this citation, or well, actually not to fix it, but to look and see what the in-text citation might be. So the narrative citation for this example, if you want to pause and take a second, you can. The narrative citation for this example would be Muhammad and then the year. So you could say Mohammed, parentheses, 2012, said that, whatever it is. Okay. The parenthetical citation would be open parenthesis, Muhammad, 2012, close parenthesis. Another example, you have more than two authors, so this would be Logue et al., because there's more than two authors, Logue et al., and the year in parentheses, 1992. The parenthetical citation would be open parenthesis, and then you would say Logue et al., period, comma, year, 1992, close parenthesis. Last example, you have a group author. So the narrative citation could look like this. American Psychiatric Association, and now we can abbreviate that. So we do American Psychiatric Association, open parenthesis, APA, comma, 2013, close parenthesis. And then from then on, we could use the APA abbreviation instead of American Psychiatric Association. The parenthetical citation for this would be open parenthesis, American Psychiatric Association, bracket, APA, close bracket, comma, 2013, close parenthesis. And that would suffice for the in-text and citation for the narrative citation and the parenthetical citation for those. So this isn't terribly difficult once you get the swing of it. It's really just author year. And then it's a different combination of author year based on which type you need. Or depending on your writing style, if you're using in-text, or excuse me, whether you're using narrative or parenthetical citations. Right? If you have any questions, please reach out to your instructor. You can also consult the APA manual or any of the myriad resources out there. Again, let me know if you have questions, and have fun writing.